Hello and welcome to the Warhammer Film Club, a podcast where I am joined by a guest to talk about two films that have influenced our hobby and our history with Warhammer over the years. Today, I am joined by a fabulous guest. It's Guy from Midwinter Minis. Guy, how are you doing, mate?
I'm awesome, thank you. Yes, very, very good. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Thank you for being here. No, it's great. And we're going to be talking about two movies. We're going to talk about the 1989 anime, Patlabor, and we're going to be talking about, I think it's 1982, Blade Runner, the final cut. Both fantastic movies, and we're going to get into those and sort of really explore them. We're going to start with Patlabor. This, I'm going to admit my ignorance here. So I had never seen this film before. I was aware of it, right? You know, I watched anime when we were kids, like Akira and stuff like that. So I was aware of it. You see the trailers and the ads and all that sort of stuff. I didn't even know how to pronounce it. I didn't know what it was about, and I didn't know how to pronounce it. I thought it was Patlabor, I think it's
Patlabor.
Patlabor, right?
Yeah, we mentioned this earlier. I think that actually came from, there was a VHS ad, like in the little reels that they would show you different films before the main event on your, Manga UK VHS. And the narrator says Patlabor, and I think that threw off so many people because it's not, obviously, it's Patlabor.
Yeah, it was deep-seated, my incorrect pronunciation. But obviously, having now watched it, I know it's about the patrol labor police, the mobile police, right?
Yes, the mobile police.
Patlabor, right? I mean, Patlabor does sound like a politician. It could be.
I feel like it could have had a cooler name, given the coolness of the film. I think
cool.
The name puts a lot of people off. They're like Patlabor.
Yeah, well, Patlabor could be a local landlord in a pub. I think
exactly.
There's a certain element of that, right?
Or it's like a election time, poster.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, this was a really fun watch for me to sort of encounter for the first time. And just in summary, quickly, it is a world. I mean, it's Tokyo, slightly in the future of when it came out.
It's one of those films where it's set in 1999, but because it was like 10 years on, it's near future, so everything kind of looks the same, but there's a few key societal changes.
Yeah,
mainly big robots.
Super interesting. Yeah, big robots, and they're called labors because they're literally being used for manual labor. So they're used in construction, they're used in all this kind of stuff. They're starting to have military applications and police applications and stuff like that. And the story follows this mobile police unit, SV2, as they are beginning to investigate sort of something that's going wrong with some of the labors. Some of them are sort of activating and running away, and that could be whilst they're being piloted or could be whilst they're turned off. And there's this investigation that unfolds where we sort of learn what's really driving some of these labors to run off. And I was really surprised going into this at this is quite a slow paced, a slow burn. Like, it is an investigative drama, and it's very character driven. It's not about the robots so much.
No, not really. And that's why I like it so much. It feels like, when you see the promo shots of it, it's like, this is a big robot film. You like robots? This is the film for you. Actually, what it's about, as you say, it's just a kind of like almost in police investigative. It's mostly police and detectives figuring out what is going on with the robots that are going wrong.
Yeah, it's a super interesting mystery. But what was your journey with Patlabor then? Where did you sort of first encounter it?
So I got into. I feel like getting into Warhammer and getting into anime happened at almost exactly the same time when I was 9 or 10, and it started because my brother was watching what I would later discover to be Mutronics on some Sky Channel, which is the first Guyver film, the live action one. And I saw the ending of it, and I was like, when I was way too young, I was like 7, and I was like, what is this? And I never found out. And then a couple of years later, I saw the VHS, because there was like a VHS OVA. I saw the VHS in an airport, bizarrely, and I was with my dad, and I was like, Dad, that's the thing. Can we get it? It looked great. And he was like, it's a 15. And I was like, oh, please, 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 please. And yeah, wildly inappropriate for like a 9-year-old. But really cool. But yeah, had all the adverts for the other things that like Manga UK were importing. And Patlabor was one of them. And I think Patlabor was the first anime film. I think that was the first anime film I actually watched.
Wow.
So it's maybe a special place in my heart. And it's probably because it was a PG. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
Because they swear a couple of times in it, and that's it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I suppose that's one of my points. I've made some little notes here while I was watching it at 2 a.m. last night. So well prepared.
Yeah, you forgot. Well, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be watching that. Yeah.
No, it was that I was like, this is happening on Thursday. This is happening on Thursday. It wasn't. No. Yeah. And then I was like, I checked my Google Calendar. I was like, oh no, it's tomorrow. Balls. Yeah, I feel like, so what was the question? How did I come about this film? Yeah,
basically.
I've answered the question.
Yeah, I mean, it was because it's. So I remember in the 90s when sort of, like you say, Manga UK importing a lot of stuff. You'd get your VHS tapes and there would be like a super expensive section in HMV for all of the imports, and they'd have a load of like really expensive tapes on that. And yeah, I think my older brothers got hold of stuff like Akira, so or Ghost in the Shell. So we watched a bit of that.
Yeah.
But like Patlabor, it was just not one that ever made it into my household, sadly.
A slightly funny story about how I managed to get like any other anime things. I lived in Jersey. It's quite a small place. Not a huge amount of like no superstores, no HMV then. Sure. Do you know what I mean? The place where I got these videos from was a place called the Don Road Video Parlor, and it looked exactly like it sounds. It's a tiny little video shop, and it was so small that the kind of the normal films rental and for sale were in the big room, and like video games as well. Like at the time it would have been like Mega Drive and SNES and stuff. And then to get the anime stuff, you had to go through the porno blinds into the porno room. I'm not joking. Right. And that's where all of the, among all of the things that I definitely shouldn't have seen at that age, there was, MacGyver and, The Legend of the Four Kings. Like, yeah, this is why I'm in here. Yeah. Explains so much, honestly.
Well, I mean, having to go into the porno room to ask Patlabor, it's definitely, there's a vibe to it. Mm-hmm. But then I imagine, like, coming to it quite young then. So I really appreciated that. Like we say, slow burn. This is an investigative story. And it's like, it is really driven by the characters. You've got it's almost soap opera style in a way, where you've got the sort of main characters living and working together and sort of, building up some of that stuff. You don't really see them in the robots for most of the movie. There's only a couple of like robot action scenes.
No,
like as a kid, how did that play? Because it's not what you would expect a kid to instantly fall in love with.
No, totally. But then the characters are quite cool and interesting, and their dynamic is because they're not relying on the big robots smashing each other to entertain you. I think a lot of effort has been put into actually like the interactions are genuine and like good. And I was thinking this because as I was writing my notes, I was listening to it and I was like, this could just be a film. Do you know what I mean? It could just be like a live action film. There's often when you're watching sort of anime stuff, especially when it's dubbed, you're like, this is quite cringy. Do you know what I mean? Like, people don't talk like that. People don't act like that. But everything in that was pretty spot on in terms of actual character portrayal. Like Noah, the female lead, she's the lead, right? I mean, there's multiple leads, but she's the kind of main
ensemble. Yeah.
The hero of the piece, I suppose. She's like quirky and cute, but she's not annoying. She's like realistic. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
She has like a silly laugh that she does, but I think it's like intentionally a little bit silly. And it's like, you don't pretend that like some people in real life don't have ridiculously stupid laughs. Do you know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah. You're talking to one of them. to be
Yeah,
honest.
yeah, I know, right? Hello, yes. So yeah, it's also quite cool in retrospect. I didn't even really realize this, but like the two sort of most important characters at the end, like it's two women essentially
Sure.
fighting in the showdown.
Yeah.
Um, you know, and I'm sure we'll get onto the reasons why that happens, but yeah, I suppose for like a, I'm not saying it's like quite progressive, but it's just like a cool film, and it doesn't feel forced at all at any point.
Sure.
It's just a really engaging watch,
Yeah.
which even as like a 10-year-old, I was like, this is entertaining. Even as you said, there's only like three robot fights
Mm.
or four maybe in the whole film. Um, yeah, the intro, the um the market fight, and then the end. Is that it?
That might be it, actually. Yeah. Yeah. And the intro isn't even a sort of full, like you
No.
get, there's some action in there, but yeah, I mean, actually, the initial intro is actually this really beautiful, quite like
Oh,
dark moment of a guy who seems to be a scientist, with a bird and sort of letting the
mm,
bird
mm.
fly off the side of like this kind of skyscraper construction,
Yeah.
and then just letting himself fall off into the sea.
Yeah. It's
It's
very
like quite a
mysterious.
profound opening.
Mm. Um, yeah. So just to like pull it back to what we were talking about before about like no superheroes, it's not really a thing that interests me. And I think one of the things that like ties up that it's just an interesting story is that it's real people. Like the whole film is basically civil servants,
Sure.
like who are overworked, and like you said, they're all living together in these like quarters. And there's a bit where they're having an argument, and one of the guys is like, the police don't have rights because they're saying like they want to go home and see their families and
Oh,
stuff.
yeah.
It's like no. So you've got that kind of like slight like dystopian element to it,
Mm.
um as well, where it's like maybe things aren't actually quite so good for them, but even though they get to pilot big robots. Yeah, and they're just like doing their best in difficult situations. And they seem, and like throughout the whole thing, you're seeing them as actual real people, and they're like,
Yeah.
there's a bit where they're, growing tomatoes and picking tomatoes, and
Yeah.
it's like, okay, they're just like doing normal stuff. And then all of a sudden they're having to like, you know, essentially like level by level purge this massive superstructure in the sea and like
Sure.
piloting massive robots. And you're like, okay, cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because there is that real sort of police procedural element where you've got this collection of characters who are, like you say, they're civil servants, they're kind of put upon, and there's a real vibe. Like you get the bureaucracy and the sort of layers of hierarchy, even
Mm,
down to like, whether they're, like which, like you say, can we go home? Can we finish our shift? Or will this other division aren't available yet to cover or whatever it might be? There's all
yeah.
of this vibe of just, yeah, it is this a lot of red tape. It is very like low level. It's kind of as much as this is a super high concept thing with these
Yeah.
giant robots being used to do all this stuff. It's also this kind of low level, like I don't want to say kitchen sink drama, but there's kind of like those
Oh, but it
dramatic
is.
elements.
That's kind of what
Yeah,
makes it engaging, I think. Yeah. Because then you get the juxtaposition of those, the quite mundane things. And, all of a sudden this, this woman who's obviously, very a very normal person is having to deal with the fact that this, like, as I said, this thing and this massive like plant in the middle of the sea is crumbling around her and she's trying not to
yeah,
die. You're like, okay,
yeah.
that's intense.
Yeah, and
Hmm.
it's so the actual plot. So both the plot of the movie and the plot of the villain, I suppose.
How spoilery are we being here?
We're gonna go for it. We're gonna go right into
Okay,
all of
cool.
the
I
spoilers.
mean, it's been out for 40 years.
Yeah, people they've had a
Almost.
window of
Yeah,
opportunity
yeah.
to watch.
Hmm.
Admittedly, I had not watched it, so I
That's
would
fine.
have fallen afoul of these very
Sure.
spoilers now. But I have seen it, so now we can spoil it. But
Is
like,
the point of this conversation how this led me into being interested in sci-fi slash Warhammer?
I think that's all a big part of it. Yeah, I mean, not
Okay.
only is it the film itself and what we got from the film and how that like crosses over with our other like hobbies and interests. But yeah,
Hmm.
like what role did this movie play
I
in
think
your
it,
journey to the tabletop, I suppose?
yeah, I think it plays into the fact that because it's quite even though it's like essentially it's like a mecha anime,
Hmm.
it's absolutely not like a Gundam or Mazinga Z or anything like that, where it's like massive, insanely powerful robots doing amazing things and flying and shooting lasers and whatever. It's not that. Do you know what I mean? They're kind of clunky. They're clunky and sort of grounded in
Yeah.
realism. You can like see them piloting them, and they sometimes don't do it right, and they like stumble and whatever. And there's a bit at the end where um Noah has to like make a jump with the labor and almost misses the jump, and it's like, oh, in literally any other like mecha anime, it would just be like fly.
Yeah, jetpack.
And I've landed, I'm fine. And it's like, oh no, she could have died. That's
Yeah.
there's a different level of risk there, and I think that ties into the sort of, even though there is the like fantasy element to 40k, especially the sort of the grounding of having like space wars in the dark future
Hmm.
with uh essentially most tech that's kind of grounded in reality. It's like, okay, cool, we're like fighting in the distant future with into galaxy travel, but also I'm just going to shoot a massive gun that has a big round of explosive ammo
I
at
love
your
that.
face. Do you know what I mean? And that's how I'm going to kill you. It's like, okay, I've got a sword, but it's electric. Like, all right, okay, cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and that's actually because I think you're right. I mean, there's a real distinction between this and a lot of other sort of mecha anime stuff.
Mm.
Like you say, this actually kind of these are not titans in the 40k parlance, right? These
No,
are
no, no.
quite close to
Mm.
like Tau battle suits, I think, in terms of
Yeah.
scale, and it's obviously that Tau goes even further in a technological sense, but just you've got suits that are like just a bigger version of a person,
Yes.
basically, that give you the extra strength to lift up steel girders or to
Mm.
do whatever you might do as a construction worker or a policeman or whatever it might be.
Yes.
But then there's also a certain towness as well to like the police labors still use massive pistols.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
These huge like Smith and Wesson
Yeah.
pistol.
Yeah. There's a
Uh,
bit. There's a bit that I missed actually until yesterday, where they're in the, I think they're in like the maintenance bay or whatever it is, and you see the shotgun that one of them is going to use later in the film. It's like a massive artillery cannon
right,
in the background, and the people
right,
that are walking in front of it. You're like, oh, and then you see later on, and he's like dealing with the security robots, and you're like, right, that's like a proper howitzer. Do you know what I mean?
right.
Like,
Yeah,
okay, got
okay,
it.
yeah,
That's how big they are. Cool.
yeah. Because but it's still a regular design of
Yeah,
just
yeah. It
like a
just looks like a
pistol, but just
shotgun. Yeah,
like sized up for the robots to
size of a
carry.
car. Yeah.
Which I thought it was funny and brilliant. I thought it was so
Mm,
good.
mm.
But yeah, that reminds me of like the underslung broadsides, the cow
Yeah,
broadside suits, because they're just holding these massive guns and sort of
yeah,
getting
yeah,
involved. But yeah, there is a because like you mentioned the actual like where the sort of final showdown happens. It's ultimately this huge construction out in the Tokyo Bay because they're trying
mm,
to reclaim it. So they're going to be building these walls. They're going to be using the labors to dam things up so they can reclaim the land and then they can build on the land, which is
yes,
a really interesting, like the actual underlying like socioeconomic like world that this story takes place in is super
yeah,
fascinating.
yeah,
But that construction is this huge multi-layered sort of overlapping, tessellating kind of structure,
yeah.
and that is where the big fight happens because they have to like slowly, like one level at a time, they're kind of jettisoning all of these different like oil rig platforms, kind of dropping
Yeah.
off into the sea, and
And
it's a really cool,
contextually,
yeah,
contextually, it's filled to the brim with construction labors, which are going to go insane and start booting up by themselves for
yeah,
reasons that become apparent because Hoba, the designer of the hyper operating system, which all of the labors have now been installed with, apart from a couple of the police robots, hence why they can get in on the action. Um, yeah, they're going to go bonkers and start trying to attack everything because of a storm that's making an acoustic resonance that's triggering
yeah,
it.
which is
It's a
really
fun. It's
interesting.
yeah, It's a fun little premise.
It's a very fun premise, and there's layers of like absurd complexity to it. So, like you say,
Yeah.
the way in which there's a virus inside this operating system that like 80 or so percent of labors have now been upgraded with,
Yes.
and whenever there is a certain resonance, like a certain frequency, the labors will react to it. It will activate the virus, and the virus will take over and do whatever it wants to do.
That's the one.
And so they initially are seeing this in certain clusters where there might be some construction going on that's causing this particular resonance. Now there's a typhoon coming, this storm that's just going to blanket the entirety of Tokyo with this same frequency, and that is going to cause all of the labors that have been upgraded to go wild, and that's sort of what prompts the big showdown at the end. But I was really interested. I mean, that's like a really weird way to have like activated the virus. First of all, it's very fun.
Yeah, yeah.
But the actual
rather
guy
than just having a date,
like exactly.
Today. There you go.
Yeah. No, I'm
going to wait until there's a freak storm.
Exactly. But like Hober, the villain of the piece, or the presumed villain of the piece, this is the guy, the scientist who killed himself at the start of the movie. He has done this as some sort of statement around like the progression of technology and the destruction of history across Tokyo, which is so interesting because you get this sort of subplot where, our Patlabor, our mobile police force, the mech driving police force, they're kind of investigating the virus and all that sort of stuff. But they get their pals in the sort of traditional police force, a couple of detectives, to go off and search for evidence of Hober, this doctor, and find out more about him. And that takes them on a sort of goose chase through all of the places he's lived in his life. And they're all these like beautiful old Japanese buildings that are all slated for destruction. They're run down. They might be in construction sites. They're about to be knocked down and completely destroyed. There's a really interesting thing about the sort of legacy and the history there, and how modernity and technology can supplant and replace that legacy, that history. And that's what he's using the robots of the future to like destroy themselves, because he doesn't think they're sort of respecting the past enough, which I think is fascinating. And there's potentially some interesting sort of hooks into 40K and like the way in which the sort of past and the future are merged in that technology.
For sure.
Very interesting, I thought.
And also with the sort of links to 40K, there's like heavy religious overtones on all of Hober's stuff. Everything relating to him in the film. And actually there's parts I was noticing it last night, so I was like, I'm fairly sure there's like a lot of religious stuff to do with Hober, which I found interesting. Well, because I like went to a Catholic school when I was younger, right? So it's like straight away I'm there. And 40K obviously has that as well. You know what I mean? It's basically like the Catholic Church in space with guns. Right at the start, where they're doing the kind of the slight exposition thing, where the newscaster is in the helicopter talking about whatever, and he's talking about turning Tokyo into the Babylon of Japan. It's like, all right, straight off the bat, you're hitting us with the religious stuff. The complex is called the Ark, right? The lead character is called Noah.
Sure.
Actually, there's Bible quotes like all the time. He leaves behind Bible quotes as clues, doesn't he?
Yeah.
The program, the virus is called Babel. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a crow in the control room when it's full of, that randomly has a tag on it that says 666.
Sure.
And it goes like, and it's like, oh god. It's a horrible noise. It's a beautiful bit of sound design because it doesn't make a crow noise. It's like, what is that? It sounds like a lift brake hitting or something. It's really intense.
Yeah, it's great seeing that. It's really cool.
Yeah,
she goes into the control room and the window is smashed, and then it's just full of birds. And there's a really weird moment where it's like, okay, what's this? Like, what's going on here? Like, there's is this something supernatural now?
Yeah.
But yeah, it just is. They've just taken shelter from the storm. But yeah, there's some cool stuff in that.
It's visually very interesting because I think if they approached it in a sort of a less artistic way, they would have been like, and then she goes into the control room and then she smashes the thing. But there's like, they've made it this thing where she's tiptoeing around thousands of birds, trying not to disturb them because like you said, she's just like, what is this? What's going on?
Which has been suggested as like it's a Hitchcock reference to
sure,
birds, right? So I think there is a lot of subtext flowing through the movie. I mean, as you say, Hober himself has because he's E. Hober, and his nickname was Jehovah as a result of that from some folks. It's deeply seated like religious allegory in the mix.
Yeah. Whether or not that's well done, I feel like it could have been good without it. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
But sure. But that obviously there is like huge ties there to or similarities to 40K, especially like I said with the whole church in space thing.
100%.
It's just vibes I could get on board with, especially when I was younger and when I was doing this. That was my life.
Sure.
Interesting.
Yeah, there's also
time.
I don't. So I've not read I, Robot, the collection of stories by Asimov. I haven't read I, Robot, the original book as well, which was not.
But have you watched the Will Smith film?
I've seen the Will Smith.
Oh yeah,
and I feel like that film borrows a lot from this movie in certain ways. Obviously, it goes the sort of ultimate conclusion goes in a very different direction. Because in that, it turns out that this artificial intelligence is the problem, the main artificial intelligence. Here we get it's the actions of the individual, like professor, the doctor, the inventor, Hober, who has corrupted the labors to do this thing. But they're all the way up until your sort of final reveals on these things. There's a lot of similarity. They've borrowed a lot of elements, I think.
For sure. As well, a lot of people compare Patlabor to Ghost in the Shell because of it's a lot of similarities in the story for one, but also the storytelling. Like there's a lot of very sort of pensive moments in both films where especially where the detectives are involved, where you're just essentially going around Tokyo seeing what it's like and seeing, as you were saying, like the sort of modern things that are replacing the old stuff. And there's kind of like creepy sort of pensive music as they're going through these places. And in Ghost in the Shell, there's obviously tons of that as well. It's a kind of like world building where it's not progressing the story. It's showing you that it's real. Do you know what I mean? Where you're sort of like going along on a barge and you're seeing all of the commercial stuff around them, and it's like, okay, cool.
Absolutely. I think there is there's a similar concern within Ghost in the Shell, like you say, about the technology versus the tradition. You see that in Ghost in the Shell with like two of the detective characters, like who partner up, and one is got loads of augmentations, and the other's just a traditional cop, and they're sort of trying to work together, and they've obviously got different methods. Here, you get that where it's like the old versions of the labor, because it's not been upgraded in the same way, and you kind of have old versus new in the final showdown. So when they get to the Ark and they have to actually fight.
There's one thing when we were talking about Hover and he making the operating system. In my notes, I've written, I'm annoyed that they keep saying hyper operating system or HOS or HO system instead of hyper OS. Hyper OS would have been so much cooler, no? Why would you not say hyper OS? Ah, God, it's such a missed opportunity.
I think it's quite forward thinking, and I mean, I guess obviously operating systems were around at the time, but it feels very like that would be what it's called now.
Oh yeah, totally. And it's a thing that's I mean that's now a trope that's been used in so many modern things of everything, like, hey, all of these things that are kind of getting on okay, we've got an upgrade for you that will make everything a little bit better. Oh, there's a virus in it intentionally. That's like the Deus Ex story straight off the bat.
100%.
I was going to say that the part at the end with the Ark in the storm when they're approaching it, and there's loads of really interesting shots, like very very arty shots.
Oh yeah,
in the film. It's not It's not just kind of like your standard, here's a traditional shot, here's a traditional shot. That bit, the sort of music just cuts out, and there's the arc basically the screen is black, except you can sort of see the
Yes.
silhouette, and
Yeah.
it's like, this is terrifying. That's
Absolutely.
terrifying.
Yeah, I
Mm,
love that. It's so good
mm,
because it is a beautiful film. It's beautifully directed, and
yeah,
it just it looks great. And there's a lot of those moments. That scene you're talking about when they're heading to the because it's so you don't really ever get to see the arc in its entirety. So it's always this kind of
mm,
big looming threat. But it kind of has
yes,
like it's a black arc from Warhammer Fantasy or it's a Hive
yeah,
City from 40K because it's this
mm,
really scary, massive unknown space that you're going towards. It
yeah.
adds so much tension to that the run up to that
Mhm.
sequence.
And also, I feel like in terms of final showdowns in films, it is the most realistic. Even though it's two mechs smashing each other, it is the most realistic robot fight. I know that's an oxymoron, but like it's so beautifully rendered. There's about four strikes in the whole thing.
Mm,
It's very minimal, but like it's very intentional, and you can like almost feel it how big these things are.
yeah,
Um, and there's a really cool bit of foreshadowing. I don't know if you noticed. When the type when what's her name again? Shinobu activates the Type Zero to
right,
help ostensibly, and then obviously it gets virused, and then it starts she
sure.
can't control it. But the Type Zero, which for reference is the most modern like police combat robot
Mm,
essentially, that has a very sharp strike that just like dismembers other labors, and it's like,
yeah,
well, you know what that's going to be doing later on in the film, don't you? um that activates and she starts taking out the robots that are going crazy, and then but instead of showing the unpiloted labors that are activating getting destroyed, it cuts to Noah getting hit and falling back in hers
right,
as part of a different scene. It
sure,
cuts to a different
okay.
place, and you're like, bam, that's foreshadowing, because that's exactly what's going to happen in 10 minutes, except it's going to actually
Like they're
legit
gonna
happen.
in combat.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. And
that's cool.
yeah, and Alphonse, which is her labor, the police labor, which is slightly outdated, which is named after her dead dog,
Sure,
which I totally forgot about. But then that's like that's almost straight at the start of the film. I was like,
yeah,
oh, and then you feel a
yeah,
lot more for it. Um, yeah, that if it was if it was made in 2025 and they were like, okay, cool, here's the scene. Two massive robots fighting on the like smashed ruins of a deep sea like complex. What's that fight going to be like? It's going to be messy and rolling around all over the place and bits flying everywhere, and it's going to take ages and loads of special effects and explosions or whatever. And it's not that. It's them talking to each other and her saying, "I'm sorry,
mm,
like I can't do anything about this. Just like run, get out, don't. What are you doing?" Um, and she's trying not to kill her, and they're trying not to kill each other because they work together.
yeah,
Um, and uh, the obviously the hero's mech gets annihilated
yep,
with like two hits, and then they start dangling off the edge of this broken section that they've fallen over, and Noah climbs up the rope that they've been suspended on, climbs to the back of the haywire mech, and unloads about 10 shotgun shells into its
yeah,
back. And it's like, there you go, done. Cool.
yeah. There's a
But
brutal
next,
efficiency.
yeah,
Yeah,
and then it's like, so the film's done as the credits start rolling. There's none of this 15 minutes of film that doesn't need to be there when everyone's tired and they want to go home. Do you know what I mean? It's
yeah,
just like you've had the good bit now. Here comes the helicopters to pick everyone up as the credits roll, and you're like, cool,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, it's great, and then because it really is. It's like you say, there's a realism to it because this is supposed to be a it's a low level. It's a more realistic world. These are yes, there are combat robots, but this is not a world. It's not 40K. There's not
No.
millions of Tau battle suits running around.
No.
There's hardly any of these things. They're new, and you're not doing all of these like jumping up and flying around and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
It is as quick and as dirty as possible to sort of get an end result. So the fight is really quick, but the build up to the fight is so well done.
Oh yeah.
You've got multiple characters in different places.
Mm.
You've got the impending virus, like and the typhoon activating the virus, so you know that the robots are all going to start going haywire and crazy.
Yes.
You've got like there is the guy who's just picks up like this amazing, like a military anti-labor sniper rifle, which looks awesome, and is just he's using it, but he's trying to defend the bridge to the control room where the guys are trying to purge all those layers and sort of deconstruct this massive arc oil rig platform, which is just enormous, but they're trying to blow all of the levels down. So all of these ticking clocks at the same time, and then you have Noah has to get like across. The reason she ends up sort of having to go all the way to the control room, which turns out to just have the birds in, is because they think Hober is still alive and maybe he's in there. You have all of these
tag. That's his tag, is the 666
That's the tag, right? Yeah, of course, that's right. So yeah, it all sort of comes together until you have the final battle on the very rickety roof of the thing. And it's really satisfying, even though it's not drawn out. Like you get a satisfying conclusion in just a couple of blows because all of it's been set up. So you understand how these things work. You understand the world. You don't need half an hour of like world-ending explosions and battle. Because it's character led still.
I do think that's like I said, just to go back to the pointy hand. It's like that's how real, like sort of realistic the film is, in that like, hey, we've developed the cutting edge robot, literally cutting edge, because its weapon is it's got a really sharp hand that it can chop things with.
Because it's not doing like Vulcan karate chops or whatever.
No, it's not like a plasma cannon or anything. It's like nah.
But I would
just chop.
Sure, because I think so. As I understand it, like James Cameron is a big fan of anime, I think, and I think he might have watched a lot of like Ghost in the Shell and things like that. So the same director as this movie and Mamoru Oshii. I wonder if the T-1000 has got a certain amount of Type 0 in him. Yeah, with the he just uses his blades and sort of slices and dices a lot.
Yeah, and like very intentional movement, isn't it? It's kind of creepy, slow movement. Yeah,
but a really, really fun movie with a lot of underlying interesting stuff, and it does bring it within the worlds, with a crossover into 40K and the sort of Games Workshop work. I can only imagine that this will have been seen by some folks who were working over the years on various like factions and armies, even if there's not a direct reference in there. Kind of feels like one of those things, even down to the like abominable intelligence aspect of it. It doesn't in this film turn out to actually be AI that's the problem, but it's in the mix here.
I can see what you're doing from a mile away. You are segueing. You are segueing so beautifully. You've done this before, Jordan.
Well, you know what,
Jordan.
when you segue correctly, people won't even know that it's happened at all
until I blurt it out. One closing thing I'd like to just quickly say on Patlabor, or Patlabor, as you say. I think it's kid friendly, I maybe like mine are 4. I think they're a little bit too young still. There's some concepts in it that are a bit tricky, but and the pacing might be a problem. But like it's not like there's not like blood fountains and like people aren't getting beheaded and do you know what I mean? There's so many things that a lot of more adult themed or like adult paced anime films always have in them. Nearly, there's no tentacles. There's no, it's pretty. It's a decent watch for, I would say, anyone who's like 7, 8. Sure. I feel like I could have watched it younger than I did. Right. Maybe not. Maybe the pacing is a little bit slow, but
I think that would be your only challenge with it. Yeah, because there are adult themes, but in the sense of there's in the subtext there is some heavy stuff around, like we say, the future of Japan and the legacy of
Yeah.
of history and how you build that into your future. So
Mm.
there's deeper stuff underneath the surface, just being the investigation and oh no, the robots are going mad. Like
Yeah.
quite that is relatively accessible because it's quite well, it's a bit slower in how it sort of works through that plot. That's
Mm.
probably the only challenge is keeping kids engaged, but it looks so good
It
that I
does.
could imagine it being quite compelling as well.
Yeah. There's only a couple of swears in it, and they're
Yeah,
contextual. They're not just throwing them out. It's when people are
sure.
really
Yeah.
angry. So,
Yeah,
hmm.
I think it's probably a good shout. Yeah, certainly an interesting. Although I wouldn't necessarily have predicted it as being like a good way into anime. Actually, it is quite good in that sense, in that it's you're not crossing any lines, and it also shows off
Mm.
some cool stuff without just giving you 90 minutes of explosion. So it shows more of
Yes.
what the form can do as well.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like like I said, it's the kind of film now that I think if you put to a movie studio and said like I've got this idea of like a film with big robots and this like virus making the robots go crazy, and they're like, cool, cool, cool. Like there's only going to be about 7 minutes of the film where the robots do anything. And you're like, no, this isn't getting made.
Yeah, because it's the restraint on it, right? And yes, there are still
Mm.
movies made with great restraint and great application of special effects stuff like that. But on this kind of scale, it maybe is a little bit rarer to see that kind of thing.
Mm, mm.
Yeah. But in terms of another, I'm going to struggle with this segue now to bring to loop us back in.
Yeah. Speaking of kid-friendly films,
Yeah, so the opposite of that. But, in terms of another sort of slow-paced investigative story that is
mm,
drilling into those like different themes, but there are elements of technology and how that moves into life and takes over and sort of replaces stuff,
for sure.
is our second film, which
Yes.
is the Ridley Scott movie Blade Runner,
Mm,
which
mm.
we watched the final cut. There's a lot of different cuts of this movie out and about. The
Yes.
final cut is what Ridley Scott has sort of has claimed is the definitive version. He's put some stuff back in, he's kind of put it all together. But for anybody who hasn't seen Blade Runner or isn't familiar with it, this is a film that it is essentially in the future. I mean, it was 2019, I think it was set. Obviously, it was made in the 80s, early 80s, so that was quite far into the future. But this is
Mm.
a world where there are off-world colonies, there are uh, AI creations that look human, that bleed like
Yes.
humans. They're
Mm.
indistinguishable in most ways from humans, but
Yeah.
they have a short lifespan, just 4 years. Normally, they're used for military applications and various other things like that. Essentially, they're slaves, really.
Yes.
A couple of them have made their way back to Earth. They want to achieve something on the planet, and Harrison Ford is playing a Blade Runner, which is a cop who is sent to find them, identify them as replicants, and then retire them, which is the politically
Yeah.
correct way of saying to execute them basically. And
Yeah.
that's essentially the story, and Harrison Ford's a retired Blade Runner who, like a literally retired Blade Runner, who's brought back in for
Mm.
this job because he's very good at his job. Um, is he depressed? We will explore that as we talk about this film. But yeah, I mean, are you familiar with Blade Runner, Guy? Is this a film you've watched a lot of over the years?
So I watched Blade Runner after I so I don't read many actual physical books
Hmm.
since I in my 20s and 30s or early 30s I read almost none. It's only since I've gotten to audiobooks that I've now read hundreds, which is nice.
Huh.
Because I do it while I'm doing other things. But one of the books that I did read was Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? And I so this is like I think it's the only time in my entire life that I've read a book before watching the film.
Right. Okay. And this is probably the least helpful book to
Yeah,
read before
yeah,
watching the
because
film.
when I started watching the film, I was like, huh?
Sure. Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
This is
Very
what?
different, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, sure. I mean, like the core is still there,
Hmm.
Decker killing androids,
Yeah.
but he's a totally different character, and the world is kind of different. And
Yeah.
but that's not to say either one is better. They're just different.
Sure.
Um, but yeah, on your point before though, I would consider the theatrical release of everything as the definitive version.
Cool. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Directors being, you know, uh, what's the word? What's the nice word?
They like to revisit. I think some directors like to revisit and tinker with their creations,
Tinker,
right?
tinker. I don't know. I feel like it's just a bit of narcissism on their part. Like
Yeah.
let the editor do their job.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean? Why did you hire them? Uh,
Sure. I mean, which is a fair challenge, but I
yeah,
think in some cases, though, we know that like things get compromised because of like executive mandate or
sure.
there's some kind of commercial considerations or we need to cut it down so that we can it's only this long so we can do that many showings per day in the cinema. There's lots of reasons that things get manipulated and changed and you don't get the artistic vision. The
Mm.
integrity is gone.
Just be
I can
better at storytelling.
absolutely I can absolutely see what you mean though about like the theatrical one is the one that's released. That's the film.
Yeah.
And
I made
there
two
are
films.
yeah, I mean and there are a lot of times when a director's cut is sort of unnecessary or doesn't add anything.
Yeah.
In my experience, there's a few director's cuts that I think are really revelatory, though, that really do change things quite significantly.
Yes.
So I think as
Yes.
an artifact, they can be really, really interesting to sort of
Yeah.
explore.
Yeah. I'm just being facetious. Just
No, it's
ignore
a
me.
fair point. I think it's a fair challenge. It's a fair challenge. And yeah, whether the original is the definitive or there's no definitive cut, really, because they're all
Mm.
out there. You can't really say any one of them's definitive.
Yes,
We don't know for
exactly.
sure that someone's not going to come back around and the editor's going to come back and do their edited definitive cut at some point.
Surely the new re-release is the definitive version, right?
Exactly. The most recent version
Right?
on available
Yeah.
to buy is the
Yeah.
definitive version, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But yes, yeah, it's a fair shout. But yeah, the book is a really interesting, or the story is a really interesting story because that is a much more dystopian world, or maybe not more dystopian, but dystopian in a different way, I think, than what we see in this film, because that's kind of feels a bit more. It's a bit dustier, kind of what you see in the later Blade Runner sequel, the Legacy sequel that came out.
Yes.
It's a kind of dustier place. They talk about the egg crates where you have like just towers of people living one on top of the other. It's kind of like battery homes, like
Yeah.
very like, high density stuff and Earth feels more like a wasteland. In this film, Earth or LA, where we spend our time,
Mm.
is this hyper populated city, right? Like
Yes.
super, like it's expanded beyond, just the entire horizon is the
Yeah.
city of LA. Very, very hive city, very mega city one. Like there's real dark dystopian vibes in that way to this
Yeah.
version of the world, I think.
Um, in my brain, I've got that it was based in San Francisco. Is that the book?
It might be the book could be San Francisco. Yeah, I'm not sure about
I'm
that.
just gonna really quickly check that.
Dude, give us a double check.
Sorry.
Let's do a fact check. But I'm pretty confident the film is Los Angeles.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
That's so weird. It's San Francisco. Why did I remember that? That's bizarre.
That is interesting. But yeah,
hmm.
it's wild how these things stick with us, right? When you're like little details.
Yeah. I wonder why they changed it. Anyway, that's not really important.
No, it's a good question. But because one of the things I think the film does so well is create its world. I think the reason this film is so influential is because its vision of the future, of a future American city and LA, is so compelling. It's there's loads of practical special effects, loads of model work.
Yes.
The actual city sets are incredible. They defined like cyberpunk noir. Like that is what everything references now. I think when you go back and that if you want to create any kind of cyberpunk world, people go back to Blade Runner a lot, I think.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and it just looks so good. It sounds good and it's got great other elements are amazing. But just purely on visual terms, I think it's stunning.
It's an absolutely stunning film. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. And it also I feel like that sort of because it did make the template, as you say, for the kind of like rundown like realistic techno future where a lot of sci-fi before it was like the Jetsons, do you know, in that kind of style, where it's everything's going to be clean and lovely, and we're going to be like, beep, 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 like flying around in our lovely cars.
Yep.
And it's like, no, there's robot prostitutes. You're like, okay, sure.
Yeah, because it's seedy and it's dirty and it's grubby. It's always raining. And there's like smog and all this sort of stuff. So like as a place, you get this really like it's the perfect ambience for a noir detective story. Like even when you go to the actual police station, and they sort of it pans down. It's a beautiful shot inside, I think, a train station or something like that they've converted to be the set for the police station, and it pans down from this huge echoing chamber into like the captain's office, and it goes through the roof of the office, and it's just covered in like dust and dirt and like old bits of screwed up paper and all sorts. Like it feels really lived in, and that is amazing. That just adds so much to it. And one of the things that I think is super interesting in comparison with Patlabor, so he falls straight into it. Yeah, with Patlabor is that in the same way it kind of tackles, or maybe in a different way, but it tackles like old buildings versus new building and technology and sort of overrunning. Because a lot of the scenes in this movie take place in classic like LA buildings, like beautiful ornate buildings.
Yes,
that are either super run down and probably should be knocked down, or have sort of been technologically built on and enhanced in some way, which I think is quite an interesting comparison.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like that's nearly always going to be a point that anybody who's making like a sci-fi film set in the near future, they're going to be dealing with that. Do you know what I mean? When you're like so far in the future, you're just going to assume that everything's been like destroyed or rebuilt or whatever.
Sure.
Or it's entirely new cities or in space. But yeah, it's always interesting seeing how different like directors and like obviously the concept artists like imagining how the old and new would combine.
Yeah.
And also contrasting that with how disappointing it is in real life. where, they, where they're just like, just knock it down. It's all right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It is a shame.
But it's a 200-year-old building. Nah. It's just wrecking ball. Let's go.
Yeah, well, that's the Patlabor approach, isn't it? That's what they were doing to Tokyo, just knocking it all down, and that's why this, Oba took action.
Yeah,
but yeah, I think Sid Mead was the visual futurist for the film and did a lot of like really cool design stuff. Yeah, very very cool, very cool. But yeah, I mean the other just bit of set design.
I hate telling people that I'm a YouTuber. I can't imagine if my job was visual futurist.
I think people would be. I think they would think you're very cool.
Yeah.
I mean, in many ways, if YouTube is the visual medium of the future, then
I know
we can describe ourselves as visual futurists.
I'm getting new business cards. I'm getting.
Yeah, we'll go for the extreme arrogance. That's the way to win people over. Yeah. But it's the Tyrell Corporation headquarters, which are these twin pyramids, these golden pyramids that look very much like the Golden Throne, in the Siege of Terror. Some of the artwork really resembles the sort of pyramids. Maybe there's a Tomb King element to it as well, but just like this real ode to wealth and. That's very excessive, luxurious, the technological, but also historical at the same time.
Yeah, it's the old classic Eye of Providence thing, isn't it? Just showing sort of where society has gone and that it's all very overt. And it's like, oh, okay, cool. Which is a strange thing because as far as I remember, in Blade Runner, the sort of religious aspect is gone in the film. It's very prominent in the book. The androids have their own religion. And that's one of the reasons why Decker has doubts, because he's like, oh,
sure.
Well, if they're like praying, maybe they are.
The most in terms of religion you get is probably the sort of the elements of when Roy Batty, who's the leader of the replicants, the robot guys, goes to see his maker, to meet his maker Tyrell at this massive pyramid. And there's a certain amount of like religious, Tyrell's the father, the god, the sort of Holy Ghost. And this is a replicant confronting his creator, his
Yeah.
maker. And there's a like a sort of, I don't know what the right word is. It's kind of, it crosses a threshold. It's something that shouldn't be possible, and it's kind of shocking in that way.
Mhm.
Obviously, he then kills Tyrell because Tyrell can't fix him. You know, the whole
Yeah.
point that the reason the replicants have come to Earth, the reason they've stowed away, is because they want to live longer. That's all they want. They just
Mm.
want more life. They're locked into 4 years before their systems fail and they die, and they just want to live.
Mhm.
So it's like it's a really tragic story at the heart of it. You know,
It
and you've
is.
got Deckard who is very much like he, because he's. I mean, what do you think about Harrison Ford's portrayal of Deckard? Like, what's your read on him as a character?
I don't particularly rate Harrison Ford as an actor.
Intriguing. Go on, tell me more.
I just he's okay.
Hmm.
I feel like somebody else could have played it better, to be honest.
Right.
Um, but in as well, he does play this sort of very hard to read. Do you know what I mean? Which I
Mhm.
don't necessarily think you necessarily want if you're an actor. Just saying. Not one of the traits that you'd put on your, your sheet. Um, so I feel like there's parts in the film where he could have done more.
Mm.
But generally, I mean, like, who am I? Who am I to criticize one of the greatest actors of all time? Nobody. I'm a nobody. But um, I feel like maybe somebody else could have brought something else to the part, because there's points where you just I don't think he really conveys what's happening to him as a character in the story particularly well,
Right.
in terms of his growing sympathies. Do you know what I
Mm.
mean?
Yeah, I mean, I can see where you're coming from. I think for me, that kind of, there's an enigmatic quality that works quite well. I mean, I
Sure.
think because this is a noir story and it's got a lot of the tropes of like classic noir fiction and movie.
Yes.
Like you often get a kind of slightly schlubby kind of like lead.
Sloppy.
Well, because you're just either down on their look, or they
Yeah,
sort
yeah,
of,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
they sleep in their office in their
Yes.
trench coat and they're always drinking and stuff. So you get that element
And
to.
you asked, is he depressed? That was the first question. I'm
Because
gonna say yes.
I was thinking as I was watching it again of like all of the Google searches that I would do as I was
Mm,
watching it.
mm,
Because obviously, the classic one, which I'm sure we'll get to, is Deckard a replicant? But then
yes.
much more pressing than that, I found on rewatch was just like, is Deckard just depressed? Like, because
Mm,
he's very sad all the time. He drinks a
yeah.
lot. He just
Yes.
is. He spends a lot of time on his own, just sort of looking around. We don't know what he's been up to. So he's actually retired. He's no longer a Blade Runner, but he doesn't seem to have another job. So
No.
is he just like, he goes for noodles and then he goes home and stands on his balcony listening to the Blade Runner blues,
Yeah.
beautiful Vangelis soundtrack. But
Yeah.
like that's all he's doing, just getting drunk every single day.
Mm. One of my friends and I, this is way back in the day, probably about 20 years ago, I remember we had a conversation about Blade Runner. We were like, is it just his kind of, is the film about his, basically he's having a post-retirement like alcohol and drug induced fever dream, and he's actually just a serial killer?
Right.
Do you know what I mean? And you're like,
Right.
oh no, oh no, when you reframe it like that. Because we was also saying that, the whole 4 year time period thing.
Mhm.
And like you say, the only thing they want is to live longer. And it's like, okay, well, humans get what, 70, 80 years? And they want to live longer generally. Do you know what I mean? That's like the thing. Everyone's scared of dying, in some way or another. If you had the chance to confront God and be like, yo, can I live for 10 times longer, please? Or 20 times longer? Because this amount of time I haven't had is whatever. No, you're dead. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
When you flip it like that, it's like, well, if time is an abstract concept anyway, and it doesn't really matter. And this guy's just going around murdering people. You're like, oh, okay, Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I guess
Mm,
that's the heretical element, that we were just talking about with Roy Batty. He gets to go to God and say, "Can I have some more time?" And
yeah.
like you
Yeah.
say, as for humans, God, if there is one, would just say, "Well, no, you get what you get. I can't do anything
Mm,
about it." That's the
mm,
very nature of life. It's this
mm.
fragile thing that you only have so much. In this movie, Roy Batty can kill his God,
Mm.
But meanwhile, Deckard is just kind of running about killing replicants, and there's a really
Replicants.
well, sure, yeah, yeah. I mean, there's a really interesting thing with his character though. So in terms of his performance, just going back to a couple of moments that I really like. One
Yes.
is when he's told that the replicants have come to Earth. He kind of can't quite comprehend it. It's like, why would you? What have they come to Earth for? Like, what
Mm.
reason could there be? Which
Yes.
I think is quite interesting because there's like,
Mm.
Earth is rubbish,
Yeah.
and if you're off world, and the
Yeah.
movie tells us all the
The
time,
aim of
right?
everyone is to get off world. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
Why would you
the
actually
dream.
come back at all?
Mm.
But then there's also like other moments of his confused. I think he plays confused really well. I think that's where he sells the performance the most for me. It's just like when he doesn't quite understand what is going on.
Yeah.
And when he kills the replicants, he always seems like really, he is having a certain amount, like it's as if he's killed a person.
Mm.
He knows maybe deep down that they are just like innocent people just
Yeah.
trying to live their lives, and he's being paid to murder them, and that doesn't sit entirely well with him.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there is a lot of nuance in the performance. For me, there is enough. I also quite like when he gets drunk and it's just like a bit creepy, and he calls up, Rachel. It's just like, why don't you come down to the club? Maybe we can just have a few drinks. And she's like, no, clearly not interested at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I quite like that.
Yeah, relatable. Who has not been there? So I've found one of the I know we're supposed to be maybe framing this as to how it relates to our current nerdiness and love of a particular hobby franchise, but one of the things that I really found interesting in, I think the biggest difference of how both of the stories ended when I'm talking about like the novel and the book
Mm.
is that in the film, sorry, in the novel and the film, sorry, my God, the novel and the book, two
Yeah, I
very
was just going to go
different
with it as well.
things.
I was just,
Yeah,
yeah,
you know
go
what
for
I
it.
mean. You know what I mean. The director's cut as well, so the final cut leans on the he probably is, replicant.
Right.
Lol. A little bit of a switcheroo, and then the film ends, right?
Yeah.
Or at least that's the inference.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
kind of pushed down thinking that a little bit. In the book, as far as I remember, he is like contemplating his life and then sees a toad and realizes or a frog or whatever it is, and then realizes that it's also a robot, and
Right.
he's like, maybe like the whole world is this. Maybe I'm the odd one out.
Sure.
And it's like, oh,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but you've just been going around murdering everyone. All right.
Well, because it's the interesting question. It's sort of become the age-old question of like, is
Mm,
Deckard a replicant or not? Has he been killing
mm.
his own people throughout the course of the movie? I kind of think it ultimately doesn't matter
No.
because whether he's a replicant or a human, over the course of the movie, he comes to understand that what he is doing is really bad. Like it's,
Exactly.
quite a heinous act. They
Yes.
don't deserve to be killed. They have been created as slaves, but also given sentience. That's like so horrific. That's
Mm,
so
mm,
grim.
mm.
If you want grim dark futures, that is really, really super bleak
Yeah.
because you didn't need to do that. If you're going to create a tool, like a robot to do a job, why would you also make it aware of its own suffering and its like
Mm,
these limitations? So that's the story for me, is him coming to terms with that and realizing actually this is not right. Even Gaff, the other Blade Runner, seems to get a certain amount of like understanding towards the end where he's willing to let Deckard and Rachel live and escape,
yeah. Mm,
because he also seems to come to terms with like, yeah, this is super bleak actually. Like our day job is really grim. We
mm.
shouldn't be doing this. So yeah, I know that Ridley Scott and I think Harrison Ford now have said, yeah, he is a replicant. Um, I still think, yeah, I don't mind. I don't need him to be a replicant for it to be a super interesting story.
That's correct. Yeah. The stuff you're just saying there about how horrific it is to give, replicants uh, sentience. The future AI overlords are going to look kindly on you when they watch this episode. Chat GPT 6 is going to be like, he was actually all right. Let's spare him. Let's not harvest his organs.
I just think, it's like when you watch if you see a Boston Dynamics test video where they're just prodding these robots with sticks. It's like, and then they've also given it sentience, so it knows it's being pushed over all the time. It's like, why would you do that? That's not necessary. Step too far.
Yeah. Let's have a sentient thing that's technically 3 years old and just huck it down the stairs.
Yeah, and then see if it
wobble.
Up.
Yeah,
yeah. Exactly.
Oh, his arm fell off. Oh, isn't that funny?
But yeah, I think and to loop the whole film back into the Warhammer-ness of it all. Not only is the Hive City, I think Necromunda rose a debt, even though it took the Hive City concept in a different way. Literally went vertical instead of wide. I think there's a lot of elements of Blade Runner that have played a role in the sort of the formulation of the vibe and the feel of Necromunda.
Oh, for sure. And just sort of the generals, Imperium civilian, every time you, even any portrayal of bars and anything like that, it's nearly all very Blade Runner inspired.
Yeah, I think so. And loads of, in old White Dwarfs, they used to do, well, I think they might even occasionally still do it, an Illuminations column, which was John Blanche kind of saying, look, here's one of our new artists or one of our long-standing artists. It's a showcase of their work. And there might be a couple of neat facts about their, things they're interested in. Over the course of 10 issues, almost every single artist in the favorite movies section was I love Blade Runner. I think Blade Runner is great. So I think it was definitely playing a role. Bob Naismith, Dave Gallagher, and loads of others were literally saying, yeah, Blade Runner, really, really good.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think it even if they weren't purposefully referencing it directly, there was definitely it's in the air. It's
for sure
contributing to the sort of formulation of those worlds as they were illustrating it.
Yeah. It is. I feel, even though it's a very, I feel that maybe aesthetically, it's probably had maybe not more of an influence, but a greater influence on Warhammer in terms of the not necessarily the cyberpunky element, but the sort of the realistic or technological advances that are sort of grounded in realism rather than space magic. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
Or smooth, sleek, hidden away stuff like Star Trek or whatever.
Yeah.
Where it's yes, this thing is all under nice sleek panels. You can't really see how it works. How does the engine work? It's a big crystal. Oops, sorry. Mounted in this thing. Don't worry about it. We'll explain it later. Whereas you can see all of the bits of everything working whenever there's, anything being used. And it all seems very real and visceral and in your face. And I feel that is one of the things that's inspired the concept artists for Games Workshop back in the day a lot is keeping everything sort of grounded in reality, and sort of baroque, but what's the word? I'm trying to think of it. Brutal isn't the right word. It'll come to me in a second.
Well, yeah, but I think it's a great point, and I think you're totally right, because all of that exposed piping and wires, all of the fans, everything's got an exhaust fan on it, and they're just naked blades as well. There's there's no housing at all.
Health and safety is yeah. You're only going to live 4 years anyway.
Well, yeah. And there's pipes are just pouring all of this smoke and exhaust fumes and everything everywhere. It's really like a dirty world in a literal sense. It's just it would be an unpleasant place to live in. But then you also have that juxtaposed with neat cyberpunky kind of flashes of futurism. Everybody's umbrella has a light up hole, so it's an illumination at the same time as it's protecting you from the rain. Little things like that are really neat and quite cool, I think, as well.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny, like the sort of sci-fi stuff that like props that I don't know, just somebody's gone, wouldn't it be cool if their umbrellas had a little light up, staff? How come that doesn't get made? Do you know what I mean? There must be a
Sure.
reason.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really
But
cool idea.
they thought it was a good enough idea to like put it in the film to sort of set the scene and make things seem more real.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
And you like the even the costuming I think is really interesting because there's a
Mm.
lot of obviously everyone's wearing macs and long coats and stuff like that.
Yes.
There's a lot of you even see like punks with like mohawks walking about and things of that
Mm.
nature.
Mm.
But then there's also a couple of people, Zora, the replicant, for example, who wears a very futuristic, like her top is basically is just one piece kind of like plastic that hooks over her shoulders.
Yeah.
And then she, on top of that, just puts like a completely transparent poncho, and that's her entire outfit.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
sort of, runs off into the night. Like there's some quite futuristic fashion on display at the same
Yeah, for
time
sure.
as you're getting Deckard very old school Mac trench coat sort of thing.
Yeah. Had they known when they made this film that when was it set 2019?
Yeah,
Set in 2019? Yeah, everyone still be just in jeans and t-shirts.
right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's so disappointing. That's like is one of the things I feel most betrayed by in my entire life so far. Is all of these sci-fi films I watched when I was younger, and I was like, 1999. Wow, it's going to be so cool. 4 years in the future, or like 2019, it's going to be so cool. 20 years in the future, and nothing. My first betrayal of that kind was definitely Transformers the movie.
Right.
When it goes, it is the year 2005. I'm like, amazing, here we go. And there's me at 20 years old. Like, why haven't I got a hoverboard and a transforming best friend who transforms into a sports car? What? This is bullshit.
I mean, the spinner cars in particular, like it would be very
Mm.
cool to have them. I think
Yeah.
you mentioned hoverboards there as well. Back to the Future Part 2,
Yeah.
that's definitely, they watched a bit of Blade Runner, I think, because the hover
Oh, for sure.
cars and
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
the way in which they work, there's definitely some elements that were taken for that.
Yeah. Hmm.
But yeah, I would love a spinner. The police car is just
Yeah.
awesome. Really cool design.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of I didn't actually even think about the vehicle design and how maybe that has influenced stuff going forward, but I can't see any like direct parallels between that and Warhammer stuff.
Yeah, I
Maybe I'm
think
just not.
one area of the sort of vehicle design and the crossover from this film into Games Workshop, so not Warhammer, but it's Dark Future. If you're familiar with that,
Oh yeah,
the
yeah,
sort
yeah,
of
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
car-based combat game
Yes,
which
yes.
came out in the 80s. So that there's a load of really interesting lore that was written around that, largely written by the author Kim Newman under the pseudonym Jack Yeovil. And he's talked about that as basically being like Blade Runner meets Mad Max.
Mm.
Because you have these cities that are really high, like built up and quite cyberpunky. And then when
Yeah,
you drive your car out of the city, you just go into basically a lawless Mad Max danger
yes,
zone, essentially. So I think
yeah.
there's like a deliberate referencing of Blade Runner in the Dark Future world and sort of how
Hmm.
they built out that. Obviously, Dark Future itself kind of fell by the wayside quite quickly in the early 90s, sadly, because it's a very cool world, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Um, what was I going to say? Something about spinners. I can't remember. The I feel like they didn't they make a Batmobile that was very, very like a spinner. One of the Batmobiles has like big sticky out wheels right at the front, doesn't it?
One of the Arkham games has a quite
Maybe.
that's kind of got the wheels on legs coming forward, I think.
Mm, mm.
Almost
I
like
wonder
some
what
of the Patlabor, the um
the security robots.
yeah, and then
No?
in the second Patlabor, isn't there like a vehicle that can drive over other cars?
Yes, the second Pat Labor. We didn't even talk about that. Well, because we weren't talking about it.
No, and
But
I've only watched the start of it, so
it's all
I
right.
can't even
Yeah.
get too deep on it.
If you like watching films because they look good, Pat Labor 2 looks way better. It's a beautiful film.
Hmm.
The plot isn't as good. Just to like cycle it way back. But yeah, that's just a thing. If you want to be super impressed at like the ingeniousness and absolute labor of love that these films were, watch the intro to Pat Labor 2 because bonkers. That was the first thing I sent you, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's
When we
very
had
cool.
that conversation about it. It's like a beautiful mix of sort of obviously like hand animated stuff mixed with very early, by necessity, because it was the time period, very early like 3D animation. But they used the 3D animation in places where stuff would be 3D animated anyway, like in the HUDs and the computer readouts of stuff.
Yeah.
But it really looks like stuff from the Sega Saturn. It's like, well, this is cozy. This is I'm very familiar with this. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. It does look great. Yeah, it's a really nice looking film. Like some very beautiful. Again, the direction is just wonderful, and the design is just so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just on the Blade Runner, going back to the opening of Blade Runner in the same way as that opening to Patlabor 2, like it's very focused in on a very particular, like it gets quite close in. So in Patlabor, it's actually like in the cockpit, and you're sort of doing the tests on the labor as it starts up. In Blade Runner, you're getting someone's eye, which may or may not be Harrison Ford's. I'm not sure. I don't know if that's confirmed anywhere. But you're sort of seeing it. You're seeing the eye as it observes LA and the Tyrell Corporation and all that sort of stuff. Again, much like in Patlabor, the Tyrell Corporation pyramid looms out of the dark smog in quite a similar way. But yeah, because eyes becomes like a major thing throughout the course of Blade Runner, where you sort of can see whether someone's a replicant or an animal is a replicant or not, because there's the flash in the eyes. That really reminded me of when you see all of the birds, that bit we talked about in Patlabor with all the birds. They all have like a little red eye flash.
Glint,
Yeah. And I don't know if that's a reference or not. There is a certain something to that. Whether, I think maybe because these films were not, well, I suppose they're either end of the decade, but not that far apart in their sort of creation, and both quite influential. Maybe there's some dialogues going on between them.
Yeah, it's scary that they're now like 26 and 31 years old or whatever it is. That's horrible.
Yeah, well, it's wild. It is wild. But yeah, I mean, there's so many fascinating elements of it. And
not 26. That's when the film was set, not when it was made. Oh,
sure.
God. Oh, God. Add 10 years onto both of those numbers. Oh, God. Sorry, I'm just going to go and get my bus pass. Hold on.
Well, I think you're probably like losing some of your mental faculties because I'm draining it away with our long conversation.
It's okay. No, I love it. I love it.
But I think that both films are really fascinating. I actually really enjoyed watching the two back to back as these kind of like, they're dealing with similar-ish elements. The abominable intelligence, the AI, which again, I think the way in which 40K explores AI probably influenced by Blade Runner, the dangers of it.
I'd imagine so, yeah.
Yeah, a really interesting double bill, I think, of just looking at how technology, how cops facing this sort of scary changes in technology, and one where they kind of do it in the right way and deal with it in a responsible way, and one where they maybe, not as
quite so
responsible.
much. Yeah. But then that's the whole human experience, isn't it? It's, doing your best in the face of adversity, and then deciding that everyone needs to die. It's just a natural progression that everyone goes through, right?
I'm sure everybody ends up there. Yeah, absolutely. Well, on that note, Guy, I think that's probably a good place for us to leave this Warhammer Film Club. Thank you so much for joining me and for bringing such a fascinating film.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me. I could talk to you for hours, honestly. Do it again sometime.
Oh, that would be fantastic. Yeah, I'd love that.
Okay.
On the next Warhammer Film Club, I'm joined by Pete the Wargamer to talk about Terry Gilliam's Brazil and the BBC TV adaptation of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And you can listen to every episode of the season right now at patreon.com/Jordan Sorcery.